runway 3, clear to land, caution for the cross on 1206.
Okay, clear to land, runway 3, 7 Charlie, go ahead.
And 5 to Tango, the Cessna's 11 o'clock, 2.5 miles, slightly higher.
Hello YouTube, Captain Mac here, and welcome back to our Pmdg 737 tutorial series. Today we're going to talk about how to align the IRS. Now for those of you that are not familiar with this aircraft, I promise you it's not a very difficult process. But for those of you who are familiar with this aircraft and who have done the alignment many times, did you know that there's 4 different types of alignment for the IRS system in this aircraft? And did you know that there's 5 different ways to enter the alignment for the IRS initialization? I didn't know that. So we're going to cover all of that today. Let's dive right in. Okay, before we start the alignment process, really quickly I just want to talk about the components that we interact with when we're using the IRS system. So we have 2 different components that we interact with on the overhead, and then of course there's the FMC/CDU, MCDU, whatever term you want to use. So up on the overhead, this is the upper overhead. So this is your typical lower head down here. It's where we spend most of our time, but for the IRS alignment we need to come up to this guy here. So we have the mode select unit, which consists of all of the lights and then of course the knobs with the different functions on them. And just really briefly, let's talk about the lights. So you've got the align light, on DC, fault, and DC fail, and then there's a GPS light up here. So for each of these 4 lights for both sides, the left and right IRS, when we're talking about the align light, if it's illuminated, it means the IRS is in align mode, attitude mode, or it's in the shutdown cycle. If it's flashing, that means alignment cannot be completed due to a code 3 if auto realignment has not started, a code 4, or a code 8, and you need to reference the code table, which I put up on the screen down here, and I'm going to leave that up there for the rest of this short portion of the discussion. You can pause if you want to write down or memorize any of those codes, but you don't really need to. The on DC light, that's this guy right here. If it's illuminated, it means the IRS is operating on DC mode from the battery bus instead of normal AC. The right IRS, this side here, is limited to 5 minutes. It does not say anything about the left side being limited. And if you're on the ground call horn in the nose wheel will start to go off if there's a battery drain condition taking place because of the IRS, or maybe not because of the IRS, just a battery drain condition, I guess. And then you've got the fault light. This guy, sorry, bottom left, the fault light. It means there's a fault affecting the IRS, attitude, and or the nav mode that's been detected. And then finally the DC fail light means DC power for the IRS is not normal. If the other lights are extinguished here, the IRS is probably operating in normal. If the DC fail light's on but the other lights are extinguished, then it means the IRS is operating in the normal AC power mode. Okay, moving up here, this is called the inertial system display unit. It's pretty straightforward. The only things I'm going to talk about here are the test, TKGS, present position is what that means, wind, and then heading status. So the test is obvious. If you go to the test mode, it tests all the lights down here. That's all it does. So it shows you that all the lights are working. The TKGS mode is true track, course, and glide slope. The PPOS, which is present position, that's what it stands for, present position. Wind is for true direction and speed. This is used in flight. And then heading or HDG STS is true heading, and status codes during alignment, minimum time remaining. So you can go to the heading, which will display the true heading, and then you can go and it'll also display the status codes. Okay, so I bumbled through that a little bit, but that's the basics of what we're working with here. Now let's talk about how to do the IRS alignment. Okay, as I mentioned in the introduction to the video, there are actually 4 different types of alignment for the IRS system. So really briefly, I want to cover what those 4 different types are. We'll also cover a couple of options that are available in the simulation environment, and then we'll get to the actual alignment process. So first of all, there is a full alignment. Full alignment takes approximately 10 minutes and should be completed every 18 to 24 hours, or if the route you're going to fly is over an area of poor or no radio updating, so somewhere like northern Siberia or something like that where you're not going to get good radio signals and good radio updating, you want to make sure before performing that flight you do a full alignment. Now, a full alignment defines a new reference for true north. It establishes a new starting position to navigate from. It sets the internal velocities to 0. It flushes all NavAid update bias. It flushes TOGA FMC position update bias, establishes a new leveling or vertical reference, performs a self-test of the system including operational on DC power, and performs the latitude and longitude self-test. Now when we get to the last part of this video, that latitude and longitude self-test is going to become important for us. The next type of alignment is called a high latitude alignment. And I'm actually re-recording this section because for some reason I called it a high altitude alignment. No, it is a high latitude alignment. So this is one I'm going to just really briefly explain. For a high latitude alignment, you're going to go from the off position to the align position, and you're going to stay on the align position. Then you're going to enter your present position in the FMC. You're going to either enter it in the FMC or in the ISDU, your present position. You're going to leave it on the align position, the switch on the align position, for 17 minutes, 17 full minutes, before moving it to the nav position. Now this does all the same stuff as a full alignment does, but by leaving the mode select switch in align for 17 minutes, it gives it additional time to measure true north due to the speed of the Earth's rotation at extreme latitudes. In other words, when you're at extreme latitudes north or south, the Earth is spinning essentially at a different speed, and so you need to give the IRS system more time to compensate for that and measure that. Okay, the last two are both quick alignments. There are two different types of quick alignment. You have a normal quick alignment, and then you have an abbreviated quick alignment. Now, let me just say that in this aircraft, the quick alignment does not work. Okay, I've tried it several times. It doesn't work. So what's supposed to happen is you're supposed to go from nav. This is for the quick alignment. You go from off, you'd go to nav, then to align, and then you'd enter the position and then go directly back to nav, and it should align in 30 seconds. It doesn't. I've tried it several times. It doesn't. It's essentially the same thing for the abbreviated quick alignment, except for that one you go over to nav, back to align, and then back to nav without entering a position, and then you wait 30 seconds and the alignment is completed. Neither one of those work in this aircraft. I'm not sure why, but PMDG has provided an option that does allow you to do a quick alignment, and so I'm going to show you that right now. If you hop down here to your FMC, then you go to PMDG Setup, Options, Simulation, and then IRS Options. You'll see there are 3 different options for the IRS alignment here. There's Realistic, Fast, 30 seconds, and Instant. So if I'm doing the quick alignment, I should be able to do it while in the Realistic alignment time mode. But it doesn't work in that mode. And it may be a simulation limitation, it may be a coding limitation, I don't know. However, I can always select the fast option in here, and then the alignment will be performed within 30 seconds. And then I can also select the instant option, where as soon as I put in the IRS position, it immediately aligns everything and I'm good to go. Okay, so you can choose that option down here if you want to do a fast alignment. Now I also want to mention real quick this use last memory position. Originally I turned this off because I thought that's just not realistic. Well, it turns out that it actually is. So like many of the options that we'll go over later in this FMC that are available, they're aircraft options. The option to use the last memorized position in the FMC is available if the airline chooses it. Now, not all of them are going to choose that, and it wasn't always available in the FMC, but it is an option that is available now. So I went ahead and turned it back on because it does provide another method for us to align the IRS, and I wanted to show that to you. So that is all the different types of alignment and the options available to us for alignment. With all of that covered, let's actually talk about let's actually perform the alignment at this point, and I'm going to show you 5 different methods for aligning the IRS. Now it's early in the morning, I'm a little tired, so I feel like I'm stumbling through everything, but I actually spent a lot of time reading the information on this so that I could get a good solid tutorial out to you. Now some of you might be thinking right now, listen, I just want to know how to align this thing and get it over with, and I understand that. I've shown that in the full flight tutorial, and I'm also going to show you the typical method for alignment right now, but I just want to reiterate that the purpose of this series of videos is a more in-depth look. So while it's not exhaustive, we are covering a lot more information in this series. So for those of you who are interested in other methods of aligning the IRS, stay tuned because we're going to cover all 5 of them. But the first one is what I would call the typical method of alignment. So if you hop into this aircraft, especially if it's the first time you've ever been in this aircraft, you've got power on, and then you notice that your displays, they don't give you any information. In fact, everything looks like it's in some type of error code. This is because the IRS alignment hasn't been completed. So the first thing we're going to do is what I call the typical method of IRS alignment. You're going to go all the way up here to your control panel, your IRS control panel that is, and or the mode select unit is actually what it's called. I mentioned that already. And what we're going to do is we're going to rotate both knobs over to the nav position. All right, and once we do that, each on DC light is going to come on for a few seconds, and then it's anywhere from, it's not very long on here, but it should be 10 seconds, but it's more like 3. And then the align light is going to illuminate and stay steady. Now if we don't enter a position within 30 seconds, the align light will start blinking. That is to indicate that it cannot do the alignment because it doesn't have a position entered. We're not going to wait that long. We're going to go ahead and enter the position and then press on. Now keep in mind, I've got it set to realistic time, which takes approximately 10 minutes. I'm not going to make you sit through waiting 10 full minutes. So you will see the alignment started, and then you'll see the completion of the alignment, and then we'll move on from there. Make sense? All right, fantastic. So typical method of aligning the IRS, left click, and I stress the left click rather than rolling the mouse wheel on this because if you bypass it to the attitude mode, you're going to have to go back to the off position and wait 30 seconds before you try it again. So left click twice to nav, on DC light comes on. I haven't timed it, but it's probably 3 to 5 seconds. Align light comes on. We're going to leave it in the nav mode, go down to the FMC, click on FMC, position initialization. It is not pause in it, that's short for position initialization. Click on that, and then we're going to select the last position that is saved up here by clicking on the line select key to the right of it. That puts it in the scratch pad down here, and then we're going to click on this line select key, and that puts in our set IRS position. And now we wait 10 minutes. Of course, in the real world, we're not going to wait 10 minutes. There's a lot of other things we need to do as part of our pre-flight procedures. But, excuse me, for our case here, we're just waiting for the alignment to complete. So I'll come back on, show you the completion really briefly, and then we'll press on from there. Sometimes in the course of making videos, we do or don't do silly things, and then it's like, oh, I could have made life so much easier for myself, or oh, I forgot to cover that. This is one of those that covers both of those. I forgot to cover something, and I could have made life easier for myself. So let me do both real quick. First of all, before you turn the IRS selector knobs to the nav position, sometimes you may find that your time and day here just shows all zeros. As soon as you turn the IRS alignment knobs or the selector knobs to the nav position, it will update this. Also note that if we have not turned those knobs to the nav or to the align, nav, or attitude position, there are no boxes available here for us to enter the position for our alignment. I don't know why that just turned on. So you must jump up to the mode select unit and turn the knobs to the nav position before you can do anything. So obviously I turned the IRS off. I'm going to redo the alignment right now. The other thing is I changed it to the 30-second mode just because we're going to go through the alignment over and over again, and I don't want to sit here for 10 minutes every single time. So I will be back momentarily with the IRS, or with the present position. I can't even talk. I will be back momentarily and we'll see the completion of the lineup. How's that sound? And you can see now that the alignment of the IRS is complete. We have access to our primary flight display, our nav display, and we're good to go to do our flight. So let's take, that is what I call, let me just say, that is what I call the typical method of alignment. That does not necessarily mean it is the typical method that an airline is going to use. Indeed, an airline may have a specific SOP on how you're supposed to perform the IRS alignment. but for the simulation environment, that is the most common method that I use and that I've seen others use for aligning the IRS. Okay, the second method that I'm going to talk about for aligning the IRS is something that you will see some folks use to try and get to just make sure that their present position is more accurate, essentially. And for the most part, the process is the same, but we're going to get our present position from another location. So to begin with, we're going to turn both of the knobs to the nav position. As soon as the align light is illuminated on both of them, we'll go to the FMC. There we go. Back down to the FMC. Same as before, select FMC, and then it immediately, because we're into the alignment process, took us to the position initialization page. But instead of grabbing this position, we're going to note it: north 47 29.7, west 122 13.1, and then we're going to go next page, and we want to see how close that is to our GPS left and right positions. If you do not have the remember last position option selected, if you have it set to no instead of yes, these will not appear in here. Also, you can see that when it says enter IRS position here, this means that we've gotten to the point where those lights are blinking up there. I'll just show that to you real quick because I mentioned it earlier. So you see that the lights are blinking, and we get the notification on the FMC to enter the IRS position. Our purpose here is to grab one of these positions and put it in the scratch pad instead. And you can grab either one by clicking on the line select key to the side. You see it puts it down here in the scratch pad. Go back to previous page and then put it in here and wait for the alignment to complete. Now, because it took me more than 30 seconds to talk through that, the alignment is already complete. I do not have it set to instant alignment. It just means that the alignment process had completed itself and was simply waiting for a position to verify it, and it immediately completed the alignment process. And so now our IRS is aligned once again. Our IRS is aligned again. That takes care of what I call the page 2 method. You know, if I had any sense, I would have called that previous method the alternate method rather than the page 2 method. And so you'll see down in the chapters list that I called it the alternate method because I got smart after the fact. Now what I want to talk about is what I call the airport reference method. And essentially this method is very similar to the other two. However, what we're going to do is we're going to use the reference to the current airport and the position that gives us in order to select our present position. So the start of the process is the same as the other two methods. You're going to move both of the selector switches to the nav position and leave them there. As soon as they come to align, we can come down here and we're going to type our reference airport into this page here. We are at KRNT, Renton Airport. Type that in, select there, and it gives you a position which happens to be very close to our present position. We're going to select it. We're going to put it into the set IRS position page and let the alignment complete, which should only take about 30 seconds. A little less than that because I was talking. And there we go. The alignment is complete. So this method uses the database, whoops, wrong button there. It uses the database reference to the center of the airport. We're at Renton Airport right now. That's the home of the 737. And so when I place KRNT, the ICAO code for the airport, into the scratch pad and then place it into the reference airport line, it automatically grabs, because we're on the position initialization page, it automatically pulls up the latitude and longitude for the center of the airport as it is published or listed in the charts. So when that happens, I can grab that from the scratch pad as you saw. I can put it in the empty boxes there, and then it completes the alignment process, and it's simple enough. And some folks prefer to use this. Now the difference between this one and the other methods we use is actually pretty clear when you look at it here. So the reference to the center of the airport is north 4729.6 and west 122.12.9, whereas our actual last position was north 4729.7 and west 122.13.1. Now it's not a big difference because we're on a small airport, and even on a large airport it wouldn't be a tremendous difference because a full minute in latitude and longitude is 60 nautical miles. So we're still within 1 degree. It's not going to be a big deal, but it's not quite as accurate as using our last position, but will work all the same, and it's going to lead nicely into what we do for the next method. Okay, this next method is similar to the last one in that we are going to use the center of the airport as our reference for aligning the IRS. However, the difference here is we're going to assume that we do not have the last IRS position available. And I say assume because when I pull up the alignment page down here, and I haven't started the process yet, but when I pull it up, you're going to see that it shows the reference airport already. Now I even turned off the last position, saving the last position, restarted it. It still has it in there because I'm in the exact same position, and that's probably just a simulation thing. We're going to assume we don't have that for the moment. Let me just put that back on menu, and we're going to actually use the chart. Now I did verify already, they are the same on the chart as the reference lat and long that comes up in the FMC, but what we're gonna do in this case is we're going to type it in. So if you don't have the last position memorized and you want to manually enter your present position in order to align the IRS, you need the chart for the airport. And you can see in the top left corner here we have the lat and long for Renton Municipal Airport. So make sure you have access to the chart. Move that back over here and get it where I can see nice and easy. And then the alignment process is relatively the same. You're going to jump back up top here. We're going to move both of our knobs to the nav position, and then when the align lights remain steadily illuminated, we will go down and enter our IRS position. Now for this one, because it takes an extra minute, I went ahead and changed it back to the realistic alignment time, and that is simply so that I can get through this without it popping up the enter present position message that will pop up on the FMC while I'm trying to type. So move both selector knobs to the nav position by left clicking twice. Wait for the align lights to illuminate and remain steady, and then down to our FMC. Click on FMC. It takes us directly to this page, and then now we're ready to set the IRS position. Now I'm actually, even though they are exactly the same, just for the sake of practice, I'm going to look at my chart to type in my latitude and longitude. Now the right way to do this is you're going to type in one side and then the other with a space in between the two. Let me show you what I'm talking about. So it's north 47. Now it's 47 degrees, but there is no button for degrees. So without any spaces, we're going to put the next coordinate, which is 29.6. Now, if you're not familiar with latitude and longitude, that's 47 degrees, 29 minutes, and 6 seconds, I believe is the right way to read that. So 29.6. So the degrees for 47 is assumed. Now we need to put a space in there, and the space doesn't show up. You'll see it when we start typing. And then it's west 122, 12.9. So west 122, and then without a space, 12.9. And then once you have that format right there, you're going to click on the line select key next to set IRS position. It puts those numbers in there, and the alignment begins. Now remember, I set it to the realistic alignment time, which means it's going to take 10 minutes. But you've all seen what the alignment looks like at this point, so I'm not going to bother showing that to you. Just trust me, it aligns just the same way. Now notice that the reference that I typed in is exactly the same as this one. Now, I promise you, my integrity on the line here, I did look at the chart when I typed it in. I didn't look here, but they are the same. Also notice that it is still different than our last position because we're not on the center of the airport, and that is where this latitude and longitude are located. And that brings us down to the final method of entering your IRS position. Okay, this final method is similar to the last in that we are going to use the chart and the latitude and longitude position on the chart in order to enter our present position. However, the difference here is we're going to enter our position on the inertial system display unit, or the ISDU, which is this guy right here. Now really briefly before I do that, let me just talk you through a couple of things. First of all, the process for starting the alignment is the same. We're going to turn both of the knobs to the nav position, and we're going to wait for the align light to illuminate and remain steady. Now, what we're not going to do is enter our position down here, but what I want to show you really quickly, when we go to the position initialization page, these boxes here are empty. Now I still have it set to 30-second alignment, so we may not get an opportunity with as much as I talk or how long it takes me to enter it to see the position entered in here. That's okay. What I want you to know is that when you type in the position on the ISDU, it does indeed put those numbers into these boxes right here and start the alignment process. So with that in mind, let's go up here and let's take a look at how we do that. In order to enter the current or present position into the ISDU, you must select present position on the display selector knob. Nothing is going to show up until I start typing. Now I want to make sure that I have my chart handy over here, and I want to just quickly mention a couple things about the keys. You'll notice the 2, 4, 6, and 8 all have a letter and a number on them. The first press of any one of these keys is going to render a letter when I'm filling out the latitude. Once I'm done with the latitude, it will automatically go to the longitude side of the display, and again the first of any of these 4 keys that I press is going to render a letter rather than a number. If you try to press a number, it will not allow you to. Okay, so with that in mind, we are at north 4729.6. When I click on the 2, you see that it puts an N in there. We're at 47 degrees. We're going to go 4, that's not a W now, 7, and that little dot means degrees, so it's already in there. And then it's 29.6, so 2, again it didn't put an N in there, 9, and then the decimal's already there, so 0.6. And that takes care of the latitude. The longitude is done the same way, except that the first button we push will render a letter. Now, the last IRS position is saved inside the aircraft even when it doesn't show up, so if I try to press south, it shouldn't let me. So I need to press the number 4 key for west, and then 122, 1, 2, 2. Now I'm going to just caution you, don't try to go too quick, because if you click it and the number doesn't show up and you go on to the next one and it registers the next number, the clear button does not work. And now I don't know if that's a simulation error or not, but it doesn't work. You'll have to move the selector knobs to off, wait 30 seconds, and then start over again. So it's 122 and then 12.9. So 1, 2, and then the decimal is already there, 9, and then you hit the enter key, and you notice the align lights went out immediately. That's because I have it set to align within 30 seconds. And so you'll see the alignment is complete, and the present position boxes, or the set IRS position boxes, are gone because those numbers were immediately put in there. That's how we can enter the IRS present position using the ISDU. Now some of you may be quite surprised at the amount of information that's available just for entering the IRS position, and I have to admit that I was as well. Before we can wrap up this video though, I think it's important that we discuss a couple of errors that can be made when entering the IRS position or working with the ISDU, or Inertial System Display Unit. There are a couple of cautions in the manual that I'm using here. First of all, during flight, if the nav reference is lost, during flight the nav reference is lost if the MSU, that's the mode select unit, let's jump up there, that's this guy right here. If the MSU select switch is set to any position except nav, even momentarily, so if you're flying along and you decide you want to mess around with this thing, if you move that mode select switch off of nav, you're going to lose your navigation reference immediately. So something to keep in mind there. You don't want to mess with this thing in flight is basically what we're getting at. Additionally, when you're getting ready to do the IRS alignment, you don't want to overshoot in either direction. So this is why I said don't use the scroll wheel, but instead click your mouse button, because you don't want to go to ATT, or when coming back the other way, you don't want to go to off accidentally. You want to wait for both align enunciators to go off before you move the aircraft. So when we perform the alignment, you may have noticed that the align lights are illuminated until the alignment is complete, and then they go off. If you move the aircraft before that, it's going to cause a problem with the alignment. You got to bring the aircraft to a complete stop. You have to position the mode select unit selector switches to off. You have to wait 30 seconds for the align lights to go out, and then you can re-accomplish the alignment. Now with that said, I want to go into the greatest errors that can happen, and this is entering incorrect latitude or longitude. So let's go ahead and start our alignment here by going to the nav selection on the mode select knobs here. They go into the align mode. Now I'm still in quick align, and that's fine. I'm going to jump down here, and what I'm going to do is for our position initialization, I am not going to enter the reference for Renton Municipal Airport, but instead I am going to enter a parking coordinate reference for San Francisco Airport. And it doesn't really matter which one, I'm just picking the top one on here for the purpose of demonstration. So the coordinate that I'm going to enter is north 3736.9. So north 37 and then 36.9, and then put a space in there. And it's west 122. Where you at? West 122, and it is 23.2. 23.2. I'm going to enter that in here, and we should, because we're on 32nd align, we should immediately get a notification saying we need to enter IRS position. Yeah, enter IRS position. The reason for this is we are more than 1 degree out of our last known position. Now let me go to the manual I have here and just kind of read this to you, because it's a lot of information and I don't want to make any mistakes on it. Now the IRS system conducts certain tests on the latitude and longitude coordinates entered during the alignment process. They are the latitude and longitude comparisons and latitude sine and cosine test. So for the longitude comparison, the entered longitude is compared versus the last position longitude. So in our case, the last position longitude is this one right here. So what we're putting in here is being compared to that. Okay. It conducts the longitude comparison immediately after it's been entered. In order to pass, the entered longitude must not be more than 1 degree different from the last position longitude. So if I clear that message off, well, it got rid of it, we were definitely more than 1 degree. Okay, the same is true for the latitude comparison. It must be within 1 degree of the last position. If either of these comparison fails, latitude or longitude, the FMC message enter IRS position will appear and an align annunciator flashes. That's this guy up here, and you can see that it's flashing. Okay, now here's where it becomes an issue. Any subsequent entry must also pass or override the comparison. So in other words, a subsequent entry of correct data passes the comparison test. If I enter this or this in here, they're both within 1 degree, it will pass the test. However, a subsequent entry of incorrect data, which is identical to that which causes the FMC message to appear, will override the comparison. The problem with that is once that comparison is override, the alignment is actually incorrect, and it will cause severe navigation problems. What I'm saying here is, and what this manual is saying is, if I enter that position again, which I'm going to do right now, the exact same position, okay, and that's key for as we go forward with other errors here, and there's only a couple more. If I enter the exact same position again, it's going to override that check, and it's going to assume that position as my present position, but that's not where I'm at, which means when I go to depart, it's going to cause some serious problems. So let's enter that again. It's north 37 and then 36.9. So north 37, 36.9. It's supposed to be exactly the same. And then west 122. So west, whoops, we got to put a space in there. Space west 122 and 23.2. 23.2. Now by doing that, when I enter that in here, it should override IRS position and origin disagree, but it's allowing it. You see how it put it in there, right? So I have it set to 32nd alignment. Let's see if it aligns. I don't know if it will or not. Now you have to remember that the manual I'm using is a little bit older. It's not super old, but it may not be updated enough to match the current software. And what I mean by that is, recognizing the possibility of that error, they may have removed that. I didn't test this out before, but you can see that you can enter it in there, and it is absolutely the wrong position, and we got the warning saying that they disagree, and the set IRS position is still highlighted. And if we go up top here, it is still blinking on the align, or the align lights are still blinking. So it looks to me like we can't actually enter the wrong IRS position anymore. It's going to cause issues. So as far as I can tell, this error is not really a concern anymore, but just keep in mind, if you do enter the wrong IRS position and it's more than 1 degree difference, in this case we're 10 degrees and change difference, on either the longitude or the latitude, because you'll notice that we're not a full degree different on our longitude, only on our latitude. Alright, and it's latitude first and longitude. So we're a full degree different on our latitude, substantially more than a full degree, to be honest with you. But keep in mind also, think about the west coast of the United States. Okay, if I were to say to enter the latitude and longitude for Phoenix, then we would be substantially more than a degree off here, but perhaps not a full degree off. Well, we would be more than a degree off here too, because Washington is so much north of where Phoenix is located. My point is simply that if either one of these is off by more than a degree, it's going to cause this error. So we're unable to do that, and we can see that the alignment still hasn't happened, which means it looks like either Pmdg has coded this so that that error can't happen, or they've coded it in accordance with the real world software, which no longer allows it. That's a possibility. But there is another way that we can end up with a very similar error, so I'm going to show you that next. Alright, in an attempt to show you this last possible error, I've actually moved the aircraft to a different location. We are currently at John Wayne Airport in Orange County, California, and John Wayne Airport ICAO code is KSNA. Now, the possibility, now I don't know if this error is going to work or not either. I haven't tried it yet. I figured let's just try it on here. You can see how the error can occur, and if it happens or not in actuality in the sim, we'll find out. So let's do this. We'll jump up here. The process is relatively the same. We're going to use our airport reference method to enter the present position, right? So I'm still on the quick align, 30 seconds. That's fine. Go to the FMC position initialization page. Now here's where this error can occur. Okay, for Santa Ana, or for John Wayne Airport, which is in Santa Ana, the latitude and longitude is north 3340.5 and west 11752.1. Keep that in mind for a minute. The reason I want you to keep that in mind is because the latitude and longitude for San Diego Airport is north 3244.0, west 11711.4. So the longitude is within a degree. The latitude is very close to being within a degree. It's, again, for John Wayne Airport, it's north 3340.5, and for San Diego, it's north 3244. So it's literally it's a couple of miles. It's 3.5 miles from being within 1 degree. So I don't know if it's going to work or not, but this is actually the two airports that the manual I'm using uses as an example of how this error can occur. And the way this error occurs is like this. We're at John Wayne Airport, which is KSNA. The ICAO code for San Diego Airport is KSAN. And so what it's saying is you need to be careful when you enter this. If I put in KSAN accidentally, because I'm within, there we go, because I'm close to being within a degree. Now I don't think it's going to work because it's still outside of a degree, but what they're saying is because they're so close, they're 64 miles, 66 miles apart or something like that, there's a possibility of it accepting it. Now here's the thing. I don't think it's going to work because it didn't work when we intentionally put the wrong position in here. Okay, what the manual's warning you of is that because the ICAO code for this airport is so close, And because the latitude and the longitude are so close, there's a possibility that the aircraft won't recognize that there's an error. Let's see if it does. It did not. So the alignment took place. You see that? But we are not in San Diego. We are at John Wayne Airport, which is 66 miles or something like that north. Now imagine that. We're going to be 60 some miles off on all of our navigation from here. And the further we go north, the worse that could get. That's interesting, isn't it? So that's a serious error that could occur if you're using that method. I wasn't sure it was going to work, but it clearly did. So you can see our last position was 33, north 3340.4 and west 11751.9. But we set our present position as 3244, 117.11.4. That's a big difference. It's a huge difference, but it was close enough that the computer didn't recognize it. And it completed the alignment process, and now we're aligned from the wrong position. So that's a huge error and something that we need to be careful of. And that could be true of any airports. Now, I don't know if it would work. I haven't tried it. You know, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause the video for a second, and what I want to do, I'm going to stay where we're at, but I'm going to try using the airport reference from just a in fact, I'll probably use Phoenix. And let's see if it'll do it just by using the airport reference code, or the airport reference for any airport. Okay, in order to test this out, I did have to move the aircraft again. I'm still at John Wayne Airport. I just moved it to a different position on the airport. I had to restart the flight to do that. And so I just moved it to another position to make sure that it didn't maintain that last position that we put in, because it did when I tried to just go to cold and dark and then restart. So what I've done is I pulled up the airport chart for Phoenix, which is similar in latitude to both John Wayne Airport and San Diego Airport. And so what I want to see is, will that error work with putting in an airport that's not even close? Because John Wayne and San Diego are relatively close, but Phoenix is quite a ways off. So same process, move our selector knobs to nav, wait for the align lights to illuminate. Once they are both illuminated, we'll come down here to set our present position. I'm still on the 30-second quick mode. Excuse me, there's a hiccup there. So set IRS position, we're going to use reference airport, but we're going to put in KPHX. Now you'll notice that this is substantially different than our last position. Now this is John Wayne Airport here. Right, it automatically loaded that as the last position when I reloaded the flight and put the aircraft here. You can see that our latitude is the same, but our longitude is substantially different. I want to see if it'll allow us to put this one in here, and will it set the IRS position? Let's find out. It will not. Let's try one more time. It didn't do anything. Oh, I put it in the second time, and it didn't give me an error code. That's interesting. Did it align? Yes, it did. Yes, it did indeed. So, if you want to drive yourself nuts or try some crazy challenge, I guess you could just put in the wrong reference airport and use that to align the IRS and see what happens. I don't know that I'd want to try it. Maybe if somebody wants me to try and do that, maybe I can set up a flight between like San Diego and Phoenix, not a very long flight, but intentionally put the wrong reference in there and see what happens. If you guys are interested in that, let me know down in the comments. By the time this video gets out, there's going to be a lot more of these already there, so you won't see it necessarily right away, but if I get enough folks down in the comments who want to see what happens if we fly the aircraft on a flight plan using the wrong position initialization, I will gladly do that. That's really it for the errors. So we saw that we could not manually enter the wrong position. It'll let you put it in there, but it won't align the IRS. But if you use the reference airport, by typing in the reference airport and using that latitude and longitude, it does let you align the IRS from the wrong present position. So it's still the same error, which could be an issue if you're flying from, say, San Diego, and you accidentally type in KSNA. You might find yourself in trouble, because check this out. Now we're at KSNA and it won't let me change. Oh, it did let me change it. it wouldn't before. So I wonder if it let me change it because I put the wrong one in there or what. I used to not be able to change it. Let's see if it'll let me change it back. KPHX. Oh yeah, it does. Okay, maybe I just was missing the button or something when I was trying it before. So you can change it, but if you don't notice it, if you're flying out of San Diego and you put KSNA accidentally as your reference airport, and then you know, if you look here, you'd notice they were different, right? Actually, we're at KSNA, so they're the same. So let's put KSON in there. So let's say we're flying out of John Wayne Airport. If you don't pay attention to the difference here, which I did mention, I believe I mentioned when we talked about using this method, verifying it up here. But if you don't pay attention and you just select this and put it in there, then you're going to find yourself in some serious trouble. But again, if you guys are interested in me doing a flight where I intentionally enter the wrong reference airport and align the IRS accordingly, let me know down in the comments, and if enough of you would like to see that, let's see what happens. It could be interesting. Alrighty folks, that is going to wrap it up for this particular tutorial. I know that was a lot more information about IRS alignment than you expected, and to be honest with you, it was for me as well. I was not expecting there to be that much involvement with the alignment of the IRS, but I suppose it's not surprising considering how advanced these aircraft really are these days. And I have to say, by going through that and learning some of that, I'm that much more impressed with the amount of work and depth that Pmdg has put into this particular aircraft and the underlying systems of the aircraft that are simulated. I think it's absolutely fantastic. If you enjoyed the video and you enjoyed the information you learned, please give it a thumbs up down below. That works with the algorithm for YouTube, which moves me higher up on the search queue essentially when people are looking for information on the IRS for this particular aircraft. If you think that I've earned it, do hit that subscribe button down there. Click on the bell if you'd like to get notifications. Your subscriptions not only help the algorithm, they actually mean a great deal to me. And I really appreciate all of my subscribers. You guys are absolutely fantastic, and it just means the world to me to see how many of you are just so just dedicated and awesome. You guys are fantastic. You guys are the reason that I do these videos, and so I hope that you enjoy them, and I hope that you'll subscribe to the channel. That's it. That's all, and no more, ladies and gentlemen. Until next time, as always, keep the blue side up unless otherwise instructed by ATC. God bless you all, and have an absolutely wonderful day.